Hello and welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Miss Veronica, if you've not been with me before, and today we're going to do another cooking practice. So today we're going to make a meal. Sometimes I know we make snacks, we can make breakfast, things like that. Today we're going to make something you can eat for lunch or for dinner, and we're going to be making fried rice. Kind of like you might get from a restaurant, but we're going to make our own today, and we're going to use healthy ingredients in order to make it good for us, but I promise it will also taste good. So we have our recipe here today, and again, the link to find that recipe is going to be in the description below. So if you would like to follow along, you can, or if you would like to download it for later, you're also welcome to do that as well. So what we're going to really talk about today is the basis of this fried rice recipe, which is of course rice. Okay? Now I'm sure all of you at some point have had rice. It is in tons of our food, and it's really a big thing in Asia especially, and that includes India and all different parts of Asia. People eat a lot of rice, and the reason is because rice in Asia is what we call a staple crop. And what a staple crop is, it's something that grows very well in certain areas, and therefore it's relied upon very heavily for a lot of the food that they make in those areas. So in Asia and the Middle East, rice is a staple crop. In Mexico, corn or maize is a staple crop. In the US, wheat is a staple crop. We have something made with wheat on almost every meal, unless we're allergic to wheat, and we use it in a lot of breads, pastas, all kinds of different things. So those are our staple crops. We rely on them for a lot of our calories, a lot of our energy, and that is what rice has been in Asia for a long, long time. Rice has a lot of minerals, a lot of nutrients and vitamins, and it also has a lot of carbohydrates. And carbohydrates are what we need for energy. You've heard maybe of athletes carbo loading before, and that just means that they're eating a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of food with carbs in it, and that gives them the energy to work hard. So a lot of people who might work in the field or on a farm or in a factory, someplace where they're working very hard physically, will need a lot of carbohydrates. And it's one of the reasons that rice is so important to different cultural groups. Now, it's not just those cultural groups who eat it. Obviously, people eat it all over the world now, but it grows very, very well in Asia, and that's why we're talking about that. Now, there are different types of rice, and different types of rice are healthier than others. So I have two in my house. I have this giant bag of white basmati rice. Okay? Basmati grows mainly in India, in the Middle East, like in Pakistan, and it is a white rice. It's very tasty, but it is a white rice. We also have, we have a lot of different forms of white rice. We also have a lot of different forms of brown rice. Now, brown rice is what I would prefer that we use in this recipe. Obviously, as we've talked about before, because right now things are a little bit more difficult as far as getting food from our grocery store, and they might not have all the things that we need. Sometimes we just need to use what's in our house, okay? So it is all right if you need to use a different kind of rice, but my preference is brown rice, and here I have an almost empty container of organic brown rice. And the difference is that this rice has not been processed the same way that white rice has. It is a whole grain. I don't know if you watched the video on our pancakes, we talked about whole grains a bit and how when we separate the shell or the outer part from the grain, it loses a lot of its nutritional value. And that's why we like brown rice, because brown rice keeps all that. So it has more fiber. Remember, fiber is good for your tummy. It helps you to poop. It also has a lot of vitamin B, which is very good for you and good for your energy as well. It has a lot of minerals in it, like iron. If any of you heard me talk about iron before, I know sometimes it's confusing to think about having iron in your blood, but it is something that we need in our bodies to keep us having energy and keep our blood healthy. So there's a lot of really good things in rice. There's also a bit of protein as well. And as you'll remember, protein is the building blocks for the body. You need protein for everything that's going to happen inside of your body, whether it's for your hair to grow, your nails, your skin, your bones, everything in your body needs protein. So there is some protein in our rice as well. So today that's what we're going to be using is our organic brown rice. It does cook differently, a little bit longer than some of the rice that you might use at home if you're using a white rice or basmati rice, even a red or a black rice. There's all kinds. So make sure when you make your rice that you're reading the directions that are on the package so that you make sure that you're cooking it correctly, because this might cook a little bit differently. Okay. Just to go over some of the other ingredients before we get started, this is a recipe that you can do all kinds of things to. You can customize it. So you can put in extra things, you can leave things out. Remember, I love it when you think of different ways that you can add things to your meals to make them healthier or to make them taste better. Also today, you'll notice that I am using about half of the amount of ingredients that you'll find on the recipe because the recipe makes quite a lot. It's good if you're going to feed it to your family for dinner. I'm going to make it for me and my husband for lunch. So I am cutting the recipe in half and using half of the amount of ingredients, which you can always do. You can always do more or less, just takes a little bit of math, and you can make more or less of whatever it is that you're creating. So quickly, let's go over these ingredients that we're using today. So I'll kind of just put the recipe to the side because the amounts are a little bit different. So I'm going to be using a half of a cup of rice. That's going to be plenty for me and one other person. So I went ahead and I scooped out a half of a cup of rice, and I'm just going to go ahead and put that in my pot. Okay, got a cute little saucepan here. That's going to be perfect. And then basically you double the amount of water per rice. So I have half a cup of rice. That means I'm going to use a whole cup of water. Okay. And in just a minute, I'm going to put that on the stove and I'm going to turn it up real high and it's going to start to boil, just as if you were boiling anything, water for pasta or things like that. And when it comes to a boil, I'm going to turn it down. I'm going to put a lid on top and I'm just going to let it sit on the stove, just kind of simmer in a little bit at a low heat for about 25 minutes. And I'm going to check it, just make sure it's not burning, make sure all the water's going out of it, and in the end we're going to have a nice fluffy rice. So I put that to the side for a moment, and these are the rest of our ingredients. We are going to be using a carrot. We're going to be peeling this carrot, and I'll show you in a little bit how we're going to do that. You're going to learn some cool cooking tricks in this video, I hope, that maybe you didn't know before. So we're going to be using a carrot. Remember, carrots have a lot of vitamin A, very, very good for your eyes. So tasty, a little bit sweet, okay? And then we also have a bell pepper that we're going to be using as well. It's a nice red one. I love the red ones. They're a little bit sweeter than the green peppers. So we're going to be using a red one today. Okay. Your recipe calls for scallions. Scallions kind of like a type of onion. So we can substitute it very, very easily if you don't have it. We actually couldn't find any scallions when we went to the store, which is fine because in my little garden outside, we are growing some chives, okay? They're these kind of long little babies, okay? They're considered an herb, and they usually have a little bulb at the top, a little flower, which you can also eat. But picked these just this morning for us to use, and again, they're gonna have an oniony taste. You could also just use an onion. A lot of people do that in fried rice or in stir fries. Just use onion, that's totally fine too, okay? We're going to be using, this is fun, ginger. This is fresh ginger. If you've never seen what ginger looks like before, this is it. This is how it grows. Ginger is a root vegetable, which means it grows underneath the ground. And it's a root. Look at it. Looks just like a root. Okay, this is a huge piece. You don't need a huge piece. We're going to be using this little piece, and that's going to be just fine for us. And I'm going to show you how we're going to peel it and how we're going to chop it up. If you do not have this or can't find it in the store, that is fine. You're just going to use a little bit of ginger, like the powdered ginger, like a spice that you might use when you're cooking or baking. And the amount of that will also be in the instructions online as well. I like the fresh stuff, so good. You're going to be using a clove of garlic, super good for your immunity, which we all need, and an egg. Usually I have brown eggs. You've seen that come from the chickens, but you had to get white eggs, and that's completely fine. We're going to be using that as well. You'll see how that's going to come about. And then we're also going to be using some sesame oil. This is optional. If you do not have it or do not like it, you don't have to use it. You can also put sesame seeds in it. So good. We're going to be using some neutral oil. Remember, that's an oil that doesn't have much of a flavor. I'm going to be using avocado oil today. And the secret ingredient is soy sauce. You can tell how much my family likes soy sauce. This was huge. Now it's just got a little bit left, but that's okay. It's going to be plenty. Alrighty. So that is the basis for our stir fry today. Our fried rice. They're kind of the same thing. Stir fry just doesn't always include rice. So I'm going to go ahead and start making the rice, and then we are going to prep all this stuff together. So we're going to have a good time today. Okay, now let's start our prep. I actually just realized that I forgot to tell you about one ingredient because it was still in my freezer. We're also going to use some frozen peas today. You can also use canned peas or, of course, fresh peas, but we're going to use some frozen peas today in our recipe. If you hear that sizzle sound, it's just some of the water dropping off from the rice, so don't worry about the sizzle. Anyway, so peas. Peas are really, really good for you. They're good for your heart. They have a lot of great vitamins and minerals in them. They have some magnesium, potassium, and also some calcium as well. And those things are all really good for your heart, for your blood pressure, all that good stuff. They're also very tasty. They have a little bit of sweetness, and they give you a little pop when you're eating them. So there's nothing we need to do to these peas. When they're ready, we're just going to dump them in. If you're using canned, you're just going to want to dump out the water in the can before you use them. But peas, sorry, I almost forgot peas. All right, we're going to do some prep. So first off, we're going to start with our carrot. Okay, I'm just going to use one, but again, you can use as many as you like. The recipe calls for about 3. But again, put in more vegetables. More vegetables is always good. Okay, so first what we want to do is to peel our carrots. Some of you have done this with me before, some have not. But usually the safest way to peel is to hold it by its end here. Going to place the peeler on and peel away from ourselves. That way we're not peeling towards our fingers, because we don't want any fingers in our food. It's not that kind of finger food. Okay? So we just peel along the carrot. All we're doing is peeling away that kind of whitish outer layer until we get to that lovely orange underneath. Okay? Peel off the end there. Peel off around the bottom. I'm going to hold it up here. Again, I'm peeling away from myself. And I have a lovely peeled carrot. Okay, I'm going to put these lovely peels in my compost bin. Okay, remember you can, different peels and things like that are going to break down, be really good if you have a garden outside. Okay, and now we're going to chop our carrot. Now this is very important, my friends. When we are in the classroom, we usually give you some knives that are not terribly sharp. And we're also watching you the whole time to make sure that you are safe. Please do not ever use a knife without an adult being with you to help you. Okay, I want you to be able to learn how to use one, but I would like you to have supervision. Again, no fingers in the food. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold it in the bear claw method. That means that we are holding it at the end with our fingers in like a claw, so they're back. So if we get too close to them with the knife, we can't chop our fingers on them, okay? So I'm gonna hold it in the back, and I'm gonna start at the front, and I'm just going to chop little discs. I apologize if this is a little loud. Got a nice wooden cutting board. So I got my bear claw, Gonna move it back a little bit. All right, okay. You can also cut these little carrot discs in half again. This might be something that's good for a grown-up to do, only because this is a little bit more difficult and a little bit more delicate. So again, please don't do any of this on your own. And who knows, maybe you can start teaching some other adults in your family how to cook once you've watched enough of these videos. Those of you who have done some of this stuff with me before already know what you're doing. A lot of you have told me that you cook with your family at home, which is so great. So I'm gonna push my carrot bits to the side, and we're gonna go on to our pepper. Now, the way that I like to cut a pepper, the way I was taught in school, is that we stick it straight up. We start from the top, okay, right here, and we cut down the sides. And the reason that this works so well is because it basically chops right around that core in the middle. This part we don't need, okay? So we're just gonna cut that sucker so that we can just throw that right away. Okay, so that's all set as well. And now that I have these lovely pieces of pepper, these are so good, guys. If you've never just snacked on a red bell pepper before, do it. They just even smell good, nice and sweet. Okay, now we're gonna cut them into strips. Okay, so I'm gonna hold it again, being very careful. And again, it's not a bad idea to have a grown-up help you with this part. Okay, I'll cut those strips in half. However you want to cut them is fine. If you would prefer to cut them up into tiny pieces, you can do that. I like them in strips because I like to have kind of a mouthful of red pepper. But some of you might not like that, and that is totally fine. You can cut them however your heart desires. Here. And I can smell my rice cooking. None of you have ever had rice cooking in your house, then you're missing out. It smells nice. A lot of homes I know have rice cookers in them. I don't have a rice cooker, but it's still very easy to do on the stove. So there are my lovely strips of red pepper. I'm gonna eat this one. So good. All right, gonna move on to our chives, or scallions, or onions. Okay, and I'm just going to chop those into tiny little pieces. Remember, it's okay to make a mess when you're cooking, just as long as you cleaned it up afterwards, so no one in your family gets annoyed at you. I have 6 people in my family, so someone else will be cleaning this up for me. Alrighty. Now, onto some tricks. Okay. First off, we have this ginger. For years, I tried to peel ginger with a peeler, and you can, but it's very nubby and knobby, so it's hard to get the peeler in there. Then I went to cooking school. I learned a trick. If you want to peel garlic, you use a spoon, and you just take it like this, and you start to peel. Look at that, it's coming right off. I'm kind of getting it in my vegetables, so I'm gonna let that alone. But it takes almost no effort, almost no elbow grease, and you can get in all the little bits and pieces. The peel won't hurt you, so if there's some left on, that's completely fine. It's just very papery, so a lot of people don't like to eat it. Okay, we don't need a whole lot of ginger here. We are going to grate this sucker. Bear with me one moment while I grab my grater. Okay, so we're just going to use a regular box grater like you would use for cheese or anything else, and we're going to grate our ginger. It's a little easier than trying to chop it up. See, it's a little wet, which is fine. I'm going to be able to scrape all that good stuff off. Now remember, when you were using a peeler, using a grater, You want to keep your fingers away from the actual grating part because we can end up with accidents and hurting our fingers on the grater. It is a little bit sharp. Okay. So what I'm going to do, most of that, ooh, look at that lovely ginger juice. Most of the ginger's kind of stuck in here, which is completely fine. It happens a lot. So I'm just going to end up taking my spoon and just kind of getting that lovely ginger off of there. You can also, if you want to, you can chop the ginger, which is fine. You're just going to end up with bigger pieces. Ginger is so good for you. It's very, very good for your stomach. It's good for your immune system. And good for you when you are sick. Okay, now another trick. So you've learned how to peel ginger. Now I'm going to teach you how to peel garlic. Okay? One of my least favorite things is peeling garlic. It's kind of a pain. It doesn't always come off very easily. So I learned a trick. Hopefully this will not be too loud. I apologize. We're just going to put it in a big empty bowl. We're going to cover it up. I'm going to shake it. Okay, there we go. Whew. Shaking it, I'm tired. Shaking it loosens up the skin, pops right off. Okay? You didn't have to sit there and get your fingers all grimy trying to do it. You had a fun activity, shaking around a bowl, looking like a crazy person to your family, but we don't mind that at all. All right, two different ways that you can do this garlic. You can either chop it up, again, because it is tiny. You'll want some help, maybe some supervision for this. The other thing that you can do is use a garlic press, which I've used in the classroom a couple of times. And if you have one, basically it's just a little presser that you put the garlic in and then you squeeze it and the garlic comes out the other side. I do not have one of those available at the moment, so I'm going to go ahead and chop it. And basically all I'm doing, any way that is safe for my fingers, I'm chopping it into teeny, teeny, tiny bits. That's called mincing. Okay, there's different kinds of cuts. You can slice, you can chop, you can mince, and you can dice. Dicing is a little bit bigger pieces. And then mincing is just making this teeny tiny as you can. Because while garlic is delicious and very good for you, we don't always want to have a big bite of garlic in our mouth. It's a little bit harsh. Kind of the same with ginger, which is why we want our ginger to be really tiny as well. All right, my friends, we are all prepped. That's called food prep. It's usually what you have to do before you go to the actual cooking part. So our rice will be done in just a few minutes, and then we are gonna cook up all this good stuff that we just prepped. And at that point, we'll also use the oil, the two different oils, the soy sauce, the salt and pepper, and our egg. Okay, so that is all for the prepping. Let's move on to the cooking. Okay, so it's time for the just hands portion of our show. I'm going to show you how we're going to cook up all this delightful stuff that we just prepped. And I've already put about 2 tablespoons of our neutral oil, that's our avocado oil, you can see that, into the pan, and I heated it up to about medium. It's always good to kind of heat your pan up before you get started with the oil already in it. That helps to keep things from sticking. Okay, and so right now I have them in here, just our carrots, our chives, and our bell pepper. And they're all chopped and ready to go. I'm just gonna pour them right into our pan. See that lovely sizzle? That's gonna get super, super fragrant once we put in our garlic and our ginger, but that doesn't come yet. We need these to get nice and soft and tender before we do anything else. And that's going to take about 5 minutes. Just a little bit of patience. You don't have to stir it the whole time, but don't leave it either because you don't want it to burn. So we're just going to give this a nice 5 minutes until it is nice and tender, soft, and ready for the next step. Okay, so we fast forwarded ahead a little bit because I didn't want to make you all sit there and watch this stuff get tender, but it's been about 5 minutes. And you can see you can kind of easily cut the vegetables in half just using the spoon. Now I like to have a crunchy carrot in mine. I like it a little bit crunchier. If you like your carrots to be softer, you could leave this a little bit longer, or you could even put the carrots in first to let them cook a little longer before you add the peppers and the scallions. But this is exactly how I like it. So it's time for our next step. And that's going to be to add our garlic and our ginger. Remember, we grated the ginger, we minced up the garlic, and so that's just going in here as well. This is going to start to smell amazing. Get it all out of there. Now, this wasn't for measuring, it was just to use something that was already dirty. So this isn't a half of a cup of ginger and garlic. It's just what I was using as a holder for them. You don't have to leave these in here for too long. Really, it'll just start to get fragrant. That means it'll start to smell quite a bit, but it's a lovely smell. When it smells, something smells good, we call it an aroma. Because saying something smells sounds bad. All right, just a few seconds, and we'll just get that all nice and hot in there in the oil. And our next step after that is just going to be to add in our rice. Okay, so here's my rice, nice and fluffy. Okay, I washed it carefully to make sure that it wasn't going to stick to the bottom of the pot, so it did really, really well. And I'm just going to throw this sucker in here. Now again, you can make more or less rice depending on how many people are eating. This is going to be a fine amount for me and one other person. I'm actually going to turn down the stove a little bit. I don't need it quite so hot. Okay. And now it's time for our peas. Okay, so I just have my nice sweet frozen peas. It's okay that they're still frozen. They're going to heat up real fast in here. Now I just kind of eyeballed it, but you can, depending on how much you're going to use, you could put in a whole cup. You could put in 2 cups if you're going to have more people. I do like a lot of peas in mine, so I added some extra. So now we need our egg. I don't know if any of you have ever done this before, but we're going to put our egg right in the middle. If you watched the last video, you know that when we crack an egg, we want to do it on a flat surface, not on the side. We don't want the shell to go up inside the egg. We just want to crack it. Okay? And I'm just going to let it go right in the middle. Okay? Then I'm going to use this lovely fork, and I'm going to scramble it. And scramble my egg right in the middle of my stir fry. Now, if you're making it again for more people, you're going to put in another egg, at least. Okay? And once it starts to cook, we're going to be able to spread it all around with the rest of our ingredients, and it will continue to cook. Okay, so our egg is almost cooked. So what we're going to do is start to mix it around with our food. And if you've ever seen eggs in your fried rice from the store, this is how they do it. Just put the egg right in and let it mix with everything else. We've got a nice cooked egg now. Easy peasy, get it? There's peas in it. I apologize. I know my jokes are very cringy. Okay, that was basically the hard part, guys, and it wasn't hard at all. The only thing left to do is just to make this thing a little bit tastier, a little bit more flavorful. So what we're going to do is add our soy sauce. In the recipe, it calls for 1/3 cup if I'm making enough for about 4 people. Since I'm only making enough for 2, I'm going to do about 3 tablespoons of soy sauce. That's about half of 1/3 cup. If you're into all that math, you know. It's going to make it nice and salty. You remember our tasting word, soy sauce is very umami. And then we're also going to use about 1/2 teaspoon of our sesame oil. Again, if you have this or if you like it, you can use it. If not, it is optional. You do not have to use it. You can also, like I said, just throw some sesame seeds in here and let them get all hot and toasty, and that'll also be delicious. Okay, we're just going to stir that up a little bit. See how it kind of changes color? Hopefully this is going to look a little bit familiar to those of you who have had fried rice before, even if it was from a restaurant. This is pretty much what it looks and smells like. I wish you guys could smell this from where you are. It smells so good. We're gonna add just a little bit of salt. Now we're doing this to taste, so there are no measurements for the salt and pepper. This is just how much you like. Since the soy sauce is already a little salty, I'm not gonna add a lot of salt. I'm just gonna add a little bit of pepper. All right, it's time to plate and test this. Okay, now we come to our favorite part, which is tasting it. This was a nice, easy recipe. We're already done. It didn't take much time, and it is beautiful. I hope you guys can see this okay. There's lots of pretty colors in here. Remember, we like to eat the rainbow. And I'm gonna take a bite, see what we think. Oh, I'm missing a pepper. I have to get a pepper in there. It's my favorite part. Just what we wanted. Oh, pardon me. I'm talking my mouth full. So rude. So, this is just what we were looking for. The vegetables are tender, but they still have a little bit of a crunch to them, which is how I like it. It's got the saltiness from the soy sauce, and then a nice taste, smoky taste from the sesame oil. And it's just super, super good and good for you. Now remember, I'm always encouraging you to add and subtract when you do your cooking, okay? You do not have to go by exactly what the recipe says, as long as you have the basis down, so making sure that your rice is cooked correctly, that kind of thing. You can add in so many other things. So your recipe, one of the things it calls for is cilantro. I didn't have any cilantro, and it hasn't grown big enough in my garden in order to use it, so I didn't today. But please, if you like cilantro, use some in here. You can also use other herbs like parsley or basil. You can put in some greens. You can saute up some spinach or cabbage. Cabbage will give it a lovely crunch. You can add other vegetables like broccoli or cauliflower to it as well. Those are really good. I especially love broccoli in it. If I had broccoli, I'd be putting broccoli in it right now. So I hope you had a good time watching the video, learning how to make fried rice, learning about staple crops that grow very well in certain areas so that the people can rely on them for a lot of their food and their energy. And today our staple crop was rice. So I hope that all of you are safe and happy and healthy, and I will talk to you very soon.